Boy, oh boy, do I have a little bit of news for you here. Looky what we have. Justice Democrats is now 51 candidates strong against the oligarchy. 51 candidates. I blinked, and we added over a dozen more candidates. So, listen, I'm going to tell you about 3 of them here. I highly recommend you go to justicedemocrats.com and read about the rest of them. What we're trying to do with Justice Democrats is take the Bernie Sanders political revolution and take over the Democratic Party, kick out the corporatists, and have politicians that are uncorrupted, who take no corporate PAC money, and they only represent the people. They will only fight for their constituents. And that's what every one of these candidates is bringing. So every time I read about these guys, I get filled with joy at the prospect that we have such fantastic candidates running. So, think about that. Added over a dozen candidates in this most recent batch. We now have 51 candidates. Okay, so let me tell you about a few of them here. First, we have Dan Cannon. So he's running in the 9th District in Indiana. Let's watch this video of Dan here, and then we'll come back and discuss some more.
Sometimes it's the hands. Sometimes it's the eyes. Without saying a word, people tell me they've never had someone to fight for them. So I do. It's why I became a lawyer, to be the voice for the people who do right every day, work their whole lives, and still get screwed. By a health insurance company, by a bureaucracy that doesn't care, by a government that doesn't listen. I fight to make things right for people. Sometimes making history, usually making a difference. I never thought I would run for Congress. I'm a real person who's had real problems. I was raised by a single mom in southern Indiana, and I dropped out of high school before I found my way. Sometimes I've lived paycheck to paycheck. Not a perfect life. Definitely not a politician's life. But too many things in this country are broken. And it's time for real people right here in the heartland to have someone fighting for them again. Time to make sure no one has to choose between paying the rent and paying for medicine. Time for a woman, just as good as her male coworkers, to get equal pay. And it's time that special interests with money stop getting all the breaks, and that Indiana working families start getting a few. We're the wealthiest country this world has ever known, and on too many streets in Indiana, you'd never know it. I believe we can afford to start doing better for real people. Jobs you can live on, real opportunities, and health care that's a right, not a privilege. My work has always been face-to-face and eye-to-eye, and that's how I see this campaign. We're going to build a movement. One Indiana small town, one diner, one front porch at a time. If you're ready for change, I'm ready to fight for it.
A populist in Indiana. I absolutely love it. I couldn't love it anymore. So the most amazing fact about Dan is that he was on the legal team that got us marriage equality. He was on the legal team that went to the Supreme Court and won the case on gay marriage. That's okay. I can't overstate how awesome that is. That is a pivotal moment in U.S. history. That's when we took the next step in ensuring equality for everybody and justice. That's like having somebody who fought against segregation, who was pivotal in the fight back against segregation, running for office. Here we have somebody who got marriage equality, who was on the legal team that got us marriage equality. Isn't that incredible? And now he's running for office. He's taking no corporate PAC money. He's running on Medicare for all. He's running on a new deal. He's being a populist. I think we can win these races. I really do. We just have to get the word out there. That's the point. We have to get the word out there, and we have to raise enough money for them too, because since they don't take any corporate PAC money, they're at a permanent financial disadvantage. And that, unfortunately, is a giant factor in these elections. Did you know over 90% of the time, the candidate that raises the most money ends up winning? So we're at a disadvantage in that respect. But when I look at how awesome these candidates are, I really get filled with hope, and I think we can do this thing. Okay, so that's Dan Cannon. Amazing story. then we also have here in the 50th District of California, Amar Kampa-Najjar. Now, he is an American of Mexican and Palestinian descent. So he has a really interesting story. His mother is Catholic. His father is a Muslim Palestinian. In fact, he spent time growing up in Gaza and witnessed a war. I mean, you want to talk about gaining some life experience. Think about what he had to go through. So he's running against Republican Duncan Hunter. Now, if you know who Duncan Hunter is, when I said his name, you recoiled. And you were like, oh, I need a fucking shower after hearing that. Duncan Hunter, number one, has argued he wants to stay in Iraq indefinitely. Okay, right off the bat, you are 100% out of lockstep with the American people who want out of these unnecessary wars. He wants to stay in Iraq indefinitely. He floated the idea casually in an interview of nuking Iran. That's like Sheldon Adelson. Like, yeah, we should send a message and just like nuke them or something. What? This guy is a congressman. He's elected. He's just, yeah, maybe we nuke Iran. And the third thing about Duncan Hunter is he somehow managed to find a way to violate our already weak-ass campaign finance laws. And he's literally under investigation by the Justice Department because he so brazenly violated our campaign finance laws. That takes an extra level of skill and an extra level of corruption. But we've legalized bribery already. But he's like, no, I will still find a way to, break the few rules that we have. Now, again, when we talk about Justice Democrats, Amar takes no corporate PAC money. No corporate PAC money, raising small dollar donations. This is a 100% grassroots populist campaign. So it's almost like you couldn't get a starker comparison. The most corrupt among a bunch that are already corrupt versus somebody who says, no, I'm not even going to take any corporate PAC money. So let me give you some of Amar's quotes. He says, from campaign finance to the way we conduct elections, we have a system that gives inordinate influence to insiders, major corporations, and the politically connected. But that's not how democracy is supposed to work. I will fight for reforms inside the Democratic Party as well as in Congress that put people first. We need to ask ourselves whether the Democratic Party should put the interests of superdelegates above those of the American voter. We need to explore ways to limit the influence of super PACs on both sides of the aisle, whether through a constitutional amendment or by preventing out-of-district special interests from overwhelming our local election. And we should be discussing issues like term limits so that we have more representatives and fewer career politicians. Okay, so on healthcare, he says the following, quote, healthcare is another priority of mine. If elected, I would support legislation to expand Medicare and move rapidly towards single-payer health care. I support Medicare for all and would vote yes every time. How do we pay for it? We already do. 1/5 of American dollars, which is $3.4 trillion last year, are spent on health care. Let's make health care a right for all instead of a privilege for the few. 100% correct. And again, I love that because what's he doing? He's flipping the debate. You know how Republicans go, Medicare for all, we can't afford it, we can't afford it, we can't afford it. Well, I've argued for the longest time, because it's true, actually we can't afford not to do it. Because if we keep the system as is, our healthcare system will cost $49 trillion over the next 10 years. Medicare for all, over the same time period, $32 trillion. You save $17 trillion if you do Medicare for all, and you cover everybody. No more medical bankruptcies, no more millions of people uninsured, no more 45,000 people dying every year because they don't have access to basic health care. So, I love it. I love it. He's for Medicare for all, he's educated on the issue, and he's a fighter. Now, we move on to the next one. So the previous two I spoke about, they're candidates for the House of Representatives. We have another Senate candidate, and she is amazing. Wait until you see this little clip and her talking about the 4 issues that she views as the most important issues, the top issues in her mind. So Deidre Aboud is running for Senate in Arizona. Of course, right now we have McCain and Flake as the senators from Arizona, and both of them will be out of the Senate shortly. But look at this. Here's what Deidre's about.
Number one, healthcare. We got to fix ACA. It clearly has parts that are broken, but we have to move toward healthcare for all. It is an absolute must. Every industrialized country in the world has figured out how to do it. We can too. It may not look like what everybody else has, but there's absolutely no reason why we can't figure out how to make sure that everybody is covered on health care. Because no society can prosper if so much of their population is sick and can't get healthy and can't afford it. And it should be based on that you need to go to see the doctor, not just after you're sick, but you need to be going to preventive care. You need to have access to that. Because these things matter for the prosperity of our country. Education's another one. This is an infrastructure issue. I mean, total infrastructure. If you don't have an education, a strong education that makes sure that everybody has a minimum of educational knowledge, and then has the ability to go on, not just to higher education as in college, but you know, why are we not looking at more trade schools? Some people want to go to trade schools. Some people need to go to trade schools. We need to be looking at how we can make sure we have a minimum and how we can empower people to go to the next step that works for them. No country has prospered that doesn't have an educational system that lifts up their population. And the United States has a history of being one of the first countries in the world to focus on the investment of education, and now our focus is on the defunding of it. It makes no sense. We are where we are because of those investments. If we don't continue to invest in the future, our future is going to look a lot different. Number 3 is separation of religion and state. This is an absolute must. It has really nothing to do with the fact that I am a religious person. It is because I grew up in this country. I had a very good public education where I fell in love, almost in a romantic relationship with the Constitution. And one of the founding principles for me that always stuck out was that no one can have religious liberty unless everyone has religious liberty. And that has to include the ability not to have religion. There is no way that the state can decide which religious interpretation works, because no religious interpretation covers everybody. Even if you're just stuck with one denomination, you can't get everybody to agree. These are clearly important because the reason why we have attacks on the LGBTQ community, the reason why we have attacks on women's productive freedom is based on religion. We as a society can come to those same conclusions if we want to, but we can't base it on religion. No religious interpretation coming to those conclusions. Number 4, net neutrality. Nobody's talking about it. This is like the biggest thing going on. Net neutrality is huge.
Isn't it so refreshing to hear Democrats who stand for something? They believe in something. They're fighting for something. And I have to say, I got a little bit giddy hearing a Muslim woman in hijab talking about how awesome secularism is, separation of church and state. Because that's like the beauty of America right there. And it flies in the face of genuine bigots on the right who would take one look at her and assume, like, you know, all these negative, backwards things. But here you have a Muslim woman in hijab going, one of my top 4 issues is separation of church and state, because it's the intertangling of religion and politics that leads to the oppression of minority groups like the LGBTQ community. There was, for religious reasons, we had people argue against gay marriage. Today, over 20 states make it so you're legally allowed to fire a gay person simply because they're gay. Well, Deidre Aboud is going to fight on the proper side of those issues. And then she says, top 4 issues: Medicare for all, free college, separation of church and state, and net neutrality. which she, by the way, defines as a free speech issue. She goes, this is a real attack on our free speech, is now you have Ajit Pai and the FCC doing the bidding of the internet service providers and giving them carte blanche. So the internet service providers can slow down traffic to sites that they don't agree with or sites that didn't pay their bribes to them. So what an amazing candidate. Really an amazing candidate. And all of our candidates are great. Again, now we have 51. Listen, we have no more excuse. We don't have an excuse anymore. Bernie Sanders' political revolution is here. So it's time to do something about it. Listen, go to justicedemocrats.com, check your district, scroll through all the candidates, all 51, look at the different places where they're running. Now we have 3 Senate candidates. The rest of them are candidates for the House of Representatives. See if one's running in your district. If one's running in your state, if you live in Arizona, go volunteer for Deidre Aboud. Donate to Deidre Aboud's campaign. We don't have an excuse anymore. There's no more excuse. We're going to come back here when all the elections happen, and we're going to get to give ourselves a report card. You know? We're going to get to say, okay, well, we had the candidates that are representing the things that we believe in, so how did we do in terms of turning out? So now it's on us. So we have, for the Senate, we have Paula Swearengin running against Joe Manchin, Allison Hartson running against Dianne Feinstein, and now we have Deidre Aboud running in Arizona. So let's do it. Let's do it. By the way, to donate to the new slate of candidates, and by the way, they need it. We launched over a dozen candidates, and to run 51 campaigns, you need a tremendous amount of money to keep just the fucking infrastructure in place to keep the operation going, never mind spending enough to actually win. So we need it. We need the money for sure for the new slate of candidates, which is over a dozen, for the 51 candidates total. But if you want to donate to this new slate of candidates, the link is going to be right below, the first link in the video description box, and I highly recommend donating. If you're in Arizona, or if you're in somebody's district, if they're running for House Representatives, give your time, man. Go talk to the campaign, see what's up, knock on doors if you have to, do phone banking, calling if you have to, all that stuff. Because again, now we have no excuse, and we do have a system that's biased against us in our fight here. We've covered a zillion stories of how the mainstream media just ignores us. They just ignore us. Amy Villela is running to take a seat after the person's resigning because of sexual harassment. Ruben Cohen, he's resigning. He's like, I can't run again. I got caught sexually harassing people. In the articles discussing that, they didn't even bring Amy up. She's already in the race. She has an amazing personal story. She's fighting for Medicare for All harder than anybody because her daughter died because we don't have Medicare for All. Can you imagine a male congressman saying, I'm resigning because I got caught being a sexual harasser, and you have a female candidate already running to take them over that seat from the male candidate, and they don't even mention her. And they float the names of other people. Hey, what about this person? What about that person? What the fuck are you talking about? Why not Amy? Because she's going to fight on these issues. That's why they ignore us. That's why corporate media ignores us. That's why the Democrats ignore us. The DCCC is trying to snub all the Justice Democrats. They're trying to make them sign pledges like, hey, by the way, you're not allowed to do attacks that might hurt your opponent in the general election. Sign this thing that says you won't do that. So then you're saying disarm. Don't attack the corporate Democrats because they're corporate. Don't do it because it might hurt. No, how about they fucking fix their goddamn positions? And then we won't be able to attack them because they're not for Medicare for All, they're not for free college. What kind of bullshit is that? And then they say you have to spend 75% of your money on fucking however we dictate you spend it. What? Well, the Democratic establishment, you lost 1,000 seats under Barack Obama. Your formula sucks. So why the fuck would new candidates have to follow your shitty outline, which didn't work? Why would they do that? Because they don't care about winning. They care about propping up corporate Democrats and continuing the status quo. They care about mealy-mouthed fucking politicians who talk about, we should increase access to healthcare. Why are you fucking using weasel words? Why are you saying access? Why not say Medicare for all, single payer? Why are you not... Yeah, well, I think we should increase access and maybe we should tweak things slightly while we still serve Wall Street and big pharma and private health insurance. But fuck that. I'm done with that bullshit. Now we have no excuse. We have 51 Justice Democrats running. That's 51 candidates that are politicians in the mold of Bernie Sanders. That's exactly what we called for. That's exactly what we wanted when we looked at the disaster that was the 2016 election, where a corporate Democrat lost to a neo-fascist monster who was a reality star. So now, no excuse. No excuse. Get out there. Get involved. Let's fucking do this thing. And just so everybody knows, I take no salary for Justice Democrats. Cenk Uygur, co-founder, takes no salary for Justice Democrats. Shoykat Chakrabarti, former top Bernie Sanders campaign official, take no salary for Justice Democrats. I don't want it. Because it's not about that. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the philosophy that we're pushing for here. We want to make America a thriving social democratic system that has Medicare for all, has free college, has a living wage, does a New Deal, gives people jobs, fixes our country. And now we have the candidates that are fighting for us, that are right on the issues. So donate. The link is the first link in the video description box. We absolutely need it because now, listen, man, I never envisioned it would get this big, Justice Democrats. We have 51 candidates. How do you even fucking keep track of 51 candidates? It's fucking crazy. How? How do we do that? Well, turns out there's just as many people out there as us who really care about this stuff and say, listen, this is no holds barred, son. We're going all in. We're going to throw everything we got at the establishment. Because we know we need populist left candidates. We know we need to fix this system. So we can't sit on our ass anymore. Because then we won't be able to sleep at night knowing we didn't do everything we could have done. Well, now we are going to do everything. So get involved. Get involved in a campaign. Make phone calls. Knock on doors. Donate time. Donate money. We got to win this thing, man. We have to win. I want to win every single race. I want to win every race. So, let's try. I can't imagine a better slate of candidates. Let's go do it.